All right, who's doing it? Someone. You guys want to make me pick?
I'll do it.
Woohoo! All right.
Yes, that's how you should do it.
All right, so
That's for next month.
so let's just start off with our first things. So like what we're gonna do through our assessment is we're just gonna find like our red flags or our main tenets that we want to like really address. So what are your goals? Like what do you want to accomplish out of this training program?
I need to fix the anterior tilt that you're gonna find.
Okay.
I need to focus more on getting my heart rate up
Okay.
and being able to withstand a little
Intensity.
Yeah.
Okay. So and then in, like any pain right now that you got?
No,
And-
just low back from time to time.
Time, all right, and any other major broken bone surgeries or anything like that?
I've had a broken humerus at the shoulder joint on the right side when I was a kid.
Okay. So what we're just making sure of is intermittent low back pain, but it's been chronic over time, and we have a shoulder that has had some stuff to it. We don't know if it's going to affect anything majorly, but we'll keep it in mind. We're looking, when we start to program, her main goal is to increase strength and also be able to develop some capacity. All right? All right, so.
It's not like cardio, or you don't?
No,
like
I
getting your
was
heart rate up or
running for a
anything?
while,
Okay.
and then I've been experiencing over the last couple years an issue with my heart rate, just spiking for no reason,
Okay.
and having a hard time getting it back down.
Okay.
So we've already been working on that,
Yep.
but
Gotcha.
All right, so let's go through lower body stuff. And let's come on over here so you guys can see exactly where she's at, and we can all kind of gauge on measurements, stuff like that.
Alright, so we'll do this active straight leg on the right side. That's really good.
well, no,
Mine's like right here.
All right, so she's pretty much what we say about 90 degrees on an active straight leg
that
raise.
side is not this good.
Alright.
So this is different than what we've been.
No, it's the same. It's just Beth is just going a little bit in a different order.
Yeah, sorry.
So internal rotation would be what, would you think? I mean, that's pretty far,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So she's getting almost like to 45 to 50 degrees of IR. All right, what do you think about ER?
And how far is it supposed to go?
So for ER is around 60. All right, so she's got a lot of that, and
Almost
she's getting, so remember, if this is 90, she's barely getting probably to 45. Right, so if you push it a little further,
Yeah.
right? So she's getting there, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
so
And
I said it should probably
all
be
right.
like 50.
and any discomfort, anything during any of those? All right.
That's really good.
Little,
Right there. Where do you feel the pain?
little pinch.
A little pinch in the hip.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Anything in the lower
No.
back when I do that?
So this is something again that we gotta keep in mind. She's already said to us, all right, I have like what feels like an anterior tilt. All right, if I have an anterior tilt of a pelvis that's rolling this way, should I have normal hip flexion? No, right? Because I mean that's what she's feeling is a pinching that's getting hit early, and that's why she's getting the compression. So the fact that she can get her leg like all the way up there, most likely is because she's getting it from the spine, rolling the pelvis back. That gives us like the illusion that she's moving much further because she's still getting some type of pinching at the top. So try the other side.
Throwing the arms or just do
Nope, just do the lower half first.
of you. Bend forward, down. Just loosen up here. So this one's a little bit tighter.
A little bit less.
Yep.
So what would you give for degrees?
This is probably like 40.
I think Michael's probably a little closer, probably closer to like 30, 35. Yeah, I don't know if she's like almost near. It's right in there. It's like the more you do it, you kind of get a little closer to that 45, 40 number. So we'll just put her at 40.
This one's a lot tighter.
And what would you think that one's at?
Yeah, probably like 30. I can feel that, and I can see.
The whole thing's starting to twist a little bit. All right, so we'll go with like 30, 35 on that one.
This one hurt?
Just a pinch.
When does,
No,
tell me
no
when the pinch starts.
Right there.
Okay, so this is probably.
Right, so
For sure.
yeah, so that's probably a better indication. Like the other one, you had your thigh almost like into her chest
Yeah.
before she started to feel stuff. Whereas like over here, it's like that's pretty much quicker. All right, so the thing we're always looking at is what other tests are helping us confirm what we're kind of seeing on the whole picture. So if she's limited in both IR, ER on that left side and her hip flexion is limited, we know that that left side most likely is kind of pushed forward, right? And also the right side moved a lot more, but she's also still getting this pinch, and if she's already said I've got like an anterior pelvic tilt, we can expect that that spine is probably rolling backwards to give us some of those ranges.
Left side is pushed forward, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Because I'm going to lose both IR and ER if I get shoved forward on that side, right? Which is what we saw, correct? It feels a little bit less on the LS things. Yep. All right, so now do the shoulders.
All right. Pull the hands straight up overhead. Take a deep breath in, and on the exhale, lower them back behind you. Good. And we'll do it one more time. Deep breath in. Exhale, and lower. And how far do we have to go down them?
Well, so remember, if we're testing overhead flexion, there's a couple things that we got to be mindful of. I got to make sure she's completely ER'd. I got to control for the ribs. So then I would say I would probably bring her back in that space, but right about there is where her elbow starts to turn. So you can do an active one and see like where things start to move. But I would say usually if we're going to test it, I would control for the rib and then you bring them back and see what happens.
So do one arm at a time.
Yeah,
and pull
yeah.
back. Exhale. Right there, starting to turn. That was my knee, not you. No, that was not you.
All right, so
Bubble.
same thing. Let's go with overhead flexion, probably close to like 130, maybe 120, 130 of flexion. So now let's check ER and IR on the shoulders. That's adduction.
Oh, sorry. Which one is this one? I was doing this one.
So we're going to bring it here, right, and we're going to go into IR and then bring it down into ER. So you got to control the shoulder. Yep. So can it go to the floor? Right? Does it rest there comfortably? Are you feeling tension?
You can make it. This like feels tight, nothing, or sharp pain or anything.
No, but I feel my ribs lift
Want it to move. Okay.
more than anything.
All right, so then go to IR and see what you got there. Right, and then when you start to feel stuff moving. All right, so we're looking at maybe 40 degrees of IR on the left and maybe almost 90 on the right of ER. Or sorry, on the left of ER.
I ran today.
Oh,
The air's Cheers. Take a deep breath in. On the exhale.
All right, so what do you notice on this side compared to the other?
This one goes down a lot easier.
And do you feel any
feels completely
different? All right.
Much easier.
So real quick, right? Notice how this left shoulder is kind of mimicking what we're seeing in the left hip. Another good confirming idea, like that whole left side is getting pushed forward. All right, so kind of similar to the other side.
Yeah.
All right. All right, and then you can do your adduction one where you bring it across the body. So again, you still got to control for the shoulder.
I go inside here. Or
So you're going to go hand on the wrist, and we're going to bring this shoulder here to block it so she can't ride up, and then we come across, and does the elbow go past the nose?
Okay.
And again, if we have someone that is missing some anterior expansion or they're compressed on the posterior side, you may get some pinching in that shoulder as well. It's another impingement test too.
When she's getting close to halfway, then it starts to lift up. She doesn't quite.
Correct. So if you're, it's the same thing as anything else. If you're testing this and it wants to pull this whole shoulder up, or like what Elisa said is like, hey, I feel my ribs coming up, like that's not relative range of motion. So we stop it where it's at. So think about bringing it in line. So you see how her elbow is below her shoulder? All right, so I'm going to bring her in line right with the shoulder and across and there. So like that's actually pretty good.
Okay.
Right.
So I was trying to keep it.
Yep. And same thing, that's actually pretty good. Right, you're not getting any pinching or anything like that. Cool. So adduction is good. All right, testing in for sternal.
Yep. All right, take a deep breath in. And exhale.
All right, so is she a wide or narrow?
I would say like wide.
She's a wide. And does she have a dynamic rib cage?
A little bit. You have a little bit of an expansion, but dynamic.
Dynamic, right? So good, give me a breath in. Right, so do my hands expand as she breathes in? Yes, then exhale. Do they close back off? Yeah, so yeah, she's dynamic.
Okay.
Right? Again, we're just making sure, like you will feel in some cases, someone breathes in and they open up, and then they exhale, and it goes, and it never closes back off. That'd be non-dynamic. All right, so let's see you do a toe touch, and let's see you squat, and then we'll start filling in these pieces. All right, do we have a posterior waist shift? Like, do her hips move backwards? Yes. Do we have a nice spinal curve? I would say it's pretty flat, right? So come on back up. Go slow. Do it one more time. Right? Do we want people palming the floor? No, right? So like, that's another piece that we're looking at in terms of, we've got a nice posterior weight shift. We kind of have like a straight back. It doesn't give us this nice kind of like curve, and then she can get down all the way to the ground. So toe touch, we'd be like, she can get there. There's some kind of, again, that might be a red flag or like yellow flag for part of it. All right, and then let's go with our squat.
Why don't you want them to be able to palm it down?
So here's the thing too, is like, how crazy was her active straight leg raise? Pretty crazy, right? So you're looking at a system that is highly mobile in certain aspects, but not in others. So like, especially on that left hip, we know it's limited. We know the left shoulder is limited. Should it have this like crazy range of motion in one like plane by itself? No, right? So what you're seeing is a compensatory strategy that's allowing her to get there. What you're testing in the active straight leg raise is the ability to expand that lower posterior part of like my hip. And if it's really open, I can slide the femur out and get this thing to go way back.
My left side didn't go as far as my right.
Right. It's still a lot, right? Because again, you're looking at usually 70 to 90 degrees. So you're at the 90 degree. And if we do some stuff, sometimes it goes past that, right? And also for someone that's, again, we talk about the other things, for someone that has low back stuff, does it seem like she has good control with of the bottom of her pelvis with her hamstrings? No, right? And that's what you're seeing is this whole thing just dumps forward, and she can get down there, most likely because we're missing some type of ability to control the bottom of the outlet from the pelvis. So again, Elise is a good example of like, man, it looks like she moves really well. She does, but there's some pieces that we have to be mindful of that can come at a cost if we let it just run wild, right? So let's see a squat. So feet shoulder width apart, hands out in front, feet stay flat. Good. And how does that look? Yeah, really good, right? So we're kind of like, all right, big thing is this toe touch is too much. Squat looks good. And we got this left side that has a deficit more than the right. All right. In terms of our R1 release, so when we're talking about this stuff, this could be any type of soft tissue stuff we put in there, all right? What do you guys like to do for soft tissue work to begin with?
This doesn't have to be based on.
Do whatever you want. No, so we're gonna talk about, but like just let's start talking about modalities first,
Okay.
and then we can start to say like, all right, well then what would we do with you specifically?
We do lacrosse ball, a lot of people, and foam roll.
All right, so we have
Do this with Bernie.
So we have these tools. So it's called the fascia blaster. Here's the thing is, it looks super weird. It is marketed in a very weird way, but what the idea of it is that these little knobs are kind of grabbing the superficial fascia in like layers of skin and tissue and getting it to slide again. If you've never used it, it can feel really good, right? And I've actually done it on people, and all of a sudden it like magically loosened up some stuff to move. So it does work, right? But it is not like, I mean, this thing is marketed as like, it'll get rid of your cellulite and and all this other stuff. And it's like, I don't know about that. So again, very non-invasive either, right? I mean, you can literally just do this to somebody and all of a sudden maybe get some changes with very little effort, or they can do it to themselves. So we have a lacrosse ball, foam roller, another type of foam roller, our massage gun, we have the fascia blaster,
That
and the
skinny
stick.
roller.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have Bernie, she's seated, doing that while I do her back.
Perfect. All right, so we have a bunch of different tools here. Where would we potentially start with maybe Elisa in terms of what we know she's got going on? Why would we foam roll the hamstring? Not saying you're wrong, I'm just asking.
Well, you were saying it was weak because she was able to still move her forward, so you want to focus on that area, right?
So there's a couple ways we can think about this. Typically, if I am going to try to massage something out, I might inhibit it a little bit in some capacity. So that might not be our best strategy if we're trying to get her to activate her hamstrings to hold the pelvis. Doesn't mean no. In some cases, like where someone has no idea how to feel that tissue, and you put them on the foam roller, and then they get some compression, and all of a sudden, like, yeah, I know what it now is like. Maybe it's tender, or maybe they feel something, and then you have them go and do something. That might be a really good idea, right? It's the same thing where like we may not want to stretch somebody like what we were talking about, but if it's the only way they can feel a sensation, and you're like, that's what I need you to feel when you do this exercise, it might be a good teaching tool. So maybe. What about, will we stay on her left side more or her right side more? Probably her left side, right? So we got some stuff that doesn't move over here. Maybe we can get some tissue quality back by doing some soft tissue work on it in the very beginning. So maybe like TFL might be a good one, because typically, is that your favorite song, Beth? TFL might be overactive in that space, especially with someone that's usually got some low back stuff. That is usually a guy that's picking up a lot of tension. But we could probably do like quad. We could probably do mid-low back, right? Maybe use the lacrosse ball in that space. We could probably use the massage gun on a upper back, right? Because she's lost ER in that space. Maybe on a pec on that side too. Like so, we can then start to like build out how long should we be doing that stuff with her for.
What do you do with the lacrosse ball?
That's exactly what I was just going to ask you.
All right.
I've never seen that.
So lacrosse ball is.
I would be a big fan of her lacrosse ball. I have like a knot.
So like,
Every time
like
you
how
come
is
in.
it? Yeah, like.
Here's the thing you have to be careful with, all right? Sometimes we use a tennis ball too, but this is very dense and can be very, painful is not the word I would use, but uncomfortable. All right, so like, let's say I want to get into, what's hard with like the foam roller, it's a big surface area, and I have a lot of stuff that runs between like the outer part of like the trochanter of the femur and into like the sacrum area. So I can take this and put it just in the outside of my hip and kind of move around and start to get some of that tissue to move again. Right? Or we have an AccuMobility ball too that I pull out. We can go into a pec and get right underneath the clavicle and get some of that stuff. Because a lot of times, like we're looking at a space that like might be just right underneath here that is kind of gumming up everything else. And if you can get a little like work in there, it might start to feel way better. And if they do it consistently, you might then get them to move much better every time they come in. So
Do we have tennis balls? Because I have some, I have some at home, but because I like those on the ground.
yeah, and again, there's
So
different, the different intensity is pretty crucial. So that wavy foam roller is really nice for getting in to like between the shoulder blades, right, and the spine, right? So this thing, we can sit right in the middle, and it kind of gets in between the nooks and crannies. And like this thing is another nice one that doesn't move. So like if I want to put it here and then move my arm around or do something like that, it's a nice thing that doesn't really kind of roll like the lacrosse ball. So if we're going to start with her, what would we maybe spend, how long, and what would we do? Left hip? All right, what else would we do? Think maybe what else we want to do on our upper body?
Since she's like so shifted forward, maybe left side, just like working, like loosening this up so it can.
Here's the, I was gonna say there's something we gotta think about, right? So like most likely we gotta create some space on the backside. So maybe we would use the foam roller to do an upper back, the blue one, yeah. All right. So we've got some soft tissue work that she can immediately jump into and get going and hopefully address some prepping the left side. What do we do for a reset for her? What do we know we have to probably do for her right out of the gate?
Improve the mobility on the left side.
And how do we do that? Because that is exactly it.
Well, I guess stretching wouldn't be the ideal thing.
Which do a hip shift thing?
So yeah, right? And that might be our first thing is we start to shift her back into her left side. We could use a 90-90 hamstring hold, right? We could do a supine hook line with her left hamstring hold. We could do a right side lying adductor pullback on that left side. We could do a stance here with a press down where we've got the left hand and left foot elevated to shift her back on the left side. There's a whole host of things we can do here that we then can start to move her in that direction. You know what you like. Which one would you pick out of all of those? Lisa, can you show us that?
I'd have my foot on the block here.
So you have a reach, so you could go with a reach too, right? And she's just hanging out there to feel her left hamstring pulling the pelvis back.
And her left foot would be elevated.
So we could elevate it. So we go there, right? And then what cues would we probably give her for this?
Make sure she's not twisting.
Kind of. Let's say here's the two things that I would think of right out of the gate. If I see her hips come up too high, she's probably getting her back to extend. So realistically, all I want is like very little, like a pelvis just kind of resting on the ground comfortably. Low back might just be relaxed. And I'm going to say, I want you to really feel the heel in this ball of the foot pushing into the step to feel this guy kicking on, which it is, right? And then I want you to give me a nice easy breath in through the nose and a nice full exhale out. All right, and if we want to drive some upper body stuff, like she was doing before, let's reach both hands to the ceiling, right? So you can feel the upper back kind of just comfortably resting on the ground and the shoulder blades come to the sides a little bit. So how much was your left hamstring working?
It's working.
All right, now how long do we want her to do that for?
Same amount of time? Or a little
So, you know what? Go, give me,
Count by breath?
Like
give me,
breath, like deep.
so this is where you guys get to pick, right? Give me 6 really good breaths, right? So we're going to let her build up some tension on it, right? And again, we want to keep coaching I want you to feel that left foot just making full contact into the step. Pause for a second. Make sure you feel the leg doing its job. Easy inhale through the nose. Right, and then blow it all out. And again, you can kind of feel the fingertips just get a little bit closer to the ceiling and feel things resting into the floor. Yeah, and keep kind of driving that foot through the step to feel that hamstring kicking on. If she's doing it correctly, she should feel more muscle kind of activating as she keeps going. So more parts of the hamstring kicking on. Maybe my lower butt cheeks start to kick on a little bit. I should feel that foot getting good contact into the step. Her breathing is still at an easy pace, right? And she can pause and take inventory as to what she's getting. Good. All right, so now let's just check something. So legs are out. Let's just check your hip range of motion on the left side. All right, so we're going to bring this guy up. You think that's better? Do you think that's better? Yeah, right? And then, actually, let's just, still getting pinching? All right, so is that a money drill for us? Yes. So how long do we want her to do it for? I would say, here's the thing is, if that is like something we know delivers, let's hammer it. I would say give me like 2 sets of like 6 to 10 breaths in there, and we should be pretty good. Actually, you know what, Elisa, let's just check one more. Line your back real quick, because this will be interesting. 2. Still a little tight, right? Any better? Or
It doesn't feel as sticky.
Again, if she says that it feels better, we didn't even touch her shoulder. All we really did was get that left hamstring on. Then cool, we just did a bunch of stuff that worked well. So, all right. So now, do we need to spend a lot of time on her breathing or on resets? Probably not. Right? She actually moved pretty well otherwise. Let's start getting her into moving into some like action stuff. So now we've got readiness. So this is where between the readiness and reactive, I think is where we probably have the most questions. What does readiness look like to you guys in our population? Readiness is kind of like more of an extended warm-up.
I feel like we had a lot of people, like with Annie, it was always like get on the bike and do a couple like 30 on, 30 off, you know, side backs and same thing.
Yep. So what else falls into that category besides some low-intensity cardiovascular work? Because again, this is where we're really thinking about getting body temperature to come up, get them moving a little bit. In the videos, he talks about using stuff that reinforces what we just did, but is more dynamic.
Could you like spark intervals maybe?
So she could, right? She could, like, I mean, it's for some of our people that really don't have a ton of movement competency. Yeah, the best thing would just be go do something that's cyclical, that we can get them working a little bit and elevated. So then when we go to our other stuff where you're like, man, I really don't want them jumping until they're like really warmed up or whatever, might be our best bet. But she's pretty trained. So what else could we do with her?
I know, I'm doing like med ball.
So
Who did med ball?
that'll probably be in there. Think of something a little bit maybe less explosive. Right, so now we can start to prep maybe the movements we're going to do, which is if today is going to be a lifting day where she's doing a lower body stuff and she's going to squat, maybe we put her in a little slightly staggered stance and we have her do some squatting. All right, maybe we put her in a left stance chop and she chops over to that side and starts to groove it a little bit more. But now she's up, now she's moving around, she should start to feel some stuff. So what do we want to put in this readiness phase for her? So we got so that's moving. Do we want to give her low-level cardiovascular work, or can we give her something that's a little bit more targeted?
Can you do both? You can do both.
Remember, we got a time constraint here, right? So we've already spent at most 2 minutes and maybe another 2 minutes. So we're already at 5 minutes, right? And that's with like really effective coaching. So we probably don't want to spend another 5 to 10 minutes in this phase because it's only going to leave us 25 for the rest of it. So let's pick like 2 things that we might put in there. What's your thoughts? You know yourself.
Would it be like
Those are probably in the same vein of just like low-level cardiovascular work. If you said to me, if she was like, my knees really hurt when I use the treadmill, and you're like, oh, does it hurt when you use the elliptical? And she says, no, then yes, go use the elliptical. All right? So,
That's not the right answer.
no, it is, but just not, that's just they're the same type of category we're looking at.
So could readiness be, I'm just thinking like with the sled, if I always went back with the left and then came
Yep.
and stepped together and then back with the left, put
Yes.
extra weight?
Right. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong that says, like,
know why I just
we can't just do the sled drag with her left step coming back to drive her into that space. It's going to start to warm her up. It's kind of low-level stuff. We're not trying to, like, push her any, like, massive amount of weight. And then,
The sink squat too with the stagger, because I haven't done that with the stagger.
all right, so which one you want to do, the sled or the sink squat? All right, so now she's a little bit warmed up. What might we put in her for, so now we've got this reactive space, which is where we're looking at more of our athletic stuff. Now, again, this is athletic for who is in front of us. So for some people, that might be skipping. For other people, that might be our box jumps or our med ball throws and stuff like that. And for other people, it might just be them, like I said, like a snap down, where they're not actually really doing too much. But what would we potentially give her that would help her maybe keep pushing her back on the left that we can now add in? She's a little bit more trained, so we could do some higher level stuff. So what pops in your head first?
Well, if you did the snap jumps, then it would make it so that it's
So correct. So is that maybe a good place to start?
because you have to be the same. You want to try to do the same, so it would be.
But she's not starting in the same spot, right? She's starting with this left leg on shoulder a little bit in front. So I mean, we could, if you were thinking about the snap down jump as what we're looking for, what she could do is a fake chop and go, right? And that's going to push her back on that left side. Same idea, right? Same exact thing, just we're going to push her back on the left. We could do med ball throws where we're going to the side, throwing to the left, and then switching feet and throwing to the left. That's still going to turn her to the left, and we're getting both sides. We could do, again, a slam with a staggered stance. Same idea. She could do a box jump, and there's nothing that says that she can't.
Oh, I thought you said that was in a reactive.
We are in reactive.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I think we're thinking one more exercise for ready.
No, we're in reactive now, right? Because again, think about this. We've got something that could be 3 minutes, and we've got something that might take a minute and a half, right? So now let's go to reactive. What do we want to put in there?
Well, those things that, with their left foot back or with their left foot forward.
So what is left foot back, right? Because we have to push her back. What are we trying to do with this fake chop to the left side? What's going to happen?
It's going to push your left foot back.
We're going to get her to yield into the left side, right? So as I get her to and stop and pause, it's going to force her to hold that position, and that tissue should just kind of release a little bit, all right? So we're not, I would say, like, that might be a good explosive piece to do, and then what could we do to reinforce it? Maybe I kind of like the idea of like a med ball throw, where she's going to be pushing off that right leg to throw it, turning to the left. Right? And now we've got her dynamically moving and working pretty hard to that left side. So here's the thing is, right?
He has me just do it.
if I want to start, and as you watch, as we keep going through the whole complete coach cert, you will start to see them go down this pathway of like, all right, if I have a drastic enough turn, right, I have to reinforce it almost as much as possible. So if all of a sudden we bring her back on this left side, and then all of a sudden we go into a throw this way, and then we spin her back this way and start throwing again, we're most likely just turning her back to the right, all right? And you may get, here's the thing is, you may get a decent outcome, but you may also just keep kind of bringing yourself back to where you started. So the idea is to kind of like go all in on that first program and see if you can restore stuff as much as possible and hold on to it, and then you can start to bring them back to both sides, right? So she may not be jumping off of both feet on this first one or doing both sides on this first one, and then next program, she's maintaining like, man, I'm holding on to this IR, I feel pretty good. Then we start introducing both stuff. And in some cases, you may never, right? You may have someone that just always kind of brings them back in normal life to that side, and you always have to keep pushing them back on that other one, okay? So now we've got that. What do we do for resistance? Like, what are we going to do for her lift? Is today going to be an upper body day, a lower body day, a total body day?
Well, I think most of our clients, because they're twice a week, are
Correct.
that we're going to do total body.
Yep. I'm with you. I agree.
The chop, so the fake chop, this question, like how long do you hold? Just like a couple seconds? Like
Yeah, you got to give it enough time to, so like if someone does this,
that's not like
probably not going to give us anything, right? So we need to sit, pause, and then come out of it.
I'm going to chop with like a med ball or something.
Yep, you could use a med ball. You could use a med ball. So I can use an easy red med ball and do that. We could do it with the rope. We could do it with I guess you could use a band if you really wanted to. That might be a little bit too challenging. But again, the tool doesn't necessarily matter. It's the intent of what we're trying to accomplish. All right, so now for strength training stuff, we got total body stuff. Let's pick a lower body exercise, 2 upper body exercises, and 1 accessory. All right, let's keep in this theme of trying to bring her back on the left side.
She could use the lower golf swing and the upper golf swing. But that would be for like with cable cross machine, where she could go, down
Like a chop.
like a chop.
Chop. Okay, I would probably put that maybe more in our readiness space if we were going to use it. Yeah, because we have something kind of like up there as ready. But let's like, if we wanted to load her lower body, where might we go? She's had low back stuff. She's got an anterior pelvic tilt. Are we going to do a bunch of hinging?
squats.
Maybe we go with a squat. She's a wide SA. She's a little bit more biased to hinging, right?
Wedge, maybe use a wedge with a squat.
Potentially. Her squat looks pretty good without it. Maybe we don't need it as much. If we were going to do would you trap bar deadlift her on this first phase? You could.
Try.
I would wager our outcome is probably going to be less than stellar, right? Mainly because just based on her history, we're trying to get her to move intensity without instigating something. The chances that has to instigate it is much higher than maybe a squat or a split squat or something along those lines. So what else could we put in there besides? If we're going to do a squat, what type of squat would we do? Are you talking goblet squat? Are you talking a front kettlebell rack squat? Are we talking back squat? Are we talking body weight? Like where would we go?
Not that.
Probably not a back squat. No.
Probably not, right? Very good idea. All right. Are we going to use a box? Are we not going to use a box?
I
Like
think a goblet squat would be
a first choice?
ideal.
Could you do one leg squats with a dumbbell?
Something like that?
Yeah, or just,
Show me.
or maybe not stick the leg out, but just, well, I guess you'd have to like either that or just like,
Or, so so you could go like that,
Right.
or are you talking like a lunge?
right.
All right. So you could. My preference would always be if I'm trying to take load off of somebody's back and I don't want them to have to pitch forward too much, any type of staggered stance stuff is going to be way better, right? Because it allows us to stay pretty vertical. As soon as, even with the ramp in a goblet squat, there might be a point where I have to like kind of sit back a little bit. But that might be where we use a box to limit to where she goes down to. All All right. So we're going to go with a goblet squat. How many reps? How many sets? All right, upper body exercise, what are we going to do? Here's the thing is this going to turn her to the left? No. Probably not. You could try it with a slightly offset stance, which might help her. And again, if we wanted to do it with in a squat position itself, we might use a rack just on the left side, and that'll slow down the left torso, and that might turn her back. But let's just wait.
Can I ask a question? This is more logistical with this program. So I have somebody that I use, like if I'm going to squat them, I either put them in an isometric hold first or do something that's going to help the quality of his squat first. Sort of how before we do any sort of hinging, we might do that Campo hold.
Yeah.
So like, is it okay in the resistance side to maybe do something like what you're saying? Like maybe I would hold in the squat and not stagger, hold
First?
front rack on the left side, just for a few breaths, get more
And then go into your
force
squat?
and then go to...
Here's the thing is like, yes, you can do whatever you want, right?
I know there's limited time, but
So this is where if
I
you
think
really
quality over
want them to be squatting and it doesn't look right on that first one, you're like, what other variables can I play with? You already know, like, all right, if I pull you back on that left hamstring and everything else cleaned up, what else can I do maybe to get that left hamstring on right away? And you're right, maybe I just go like something like this first and have them hold it and be like, do you feel your left leg? Tuck your tailbone just a little bit. Do you feel more of your left leg? Does it feel okay? And then like now come back to your squat and it looks better? Awesome, you figured it out. That's where it's
you
like...
wouldn't program it. You would just adjust as you go.
And again, then you make your adjustments on the program. It all depends on what your goal is.
But what if you have a group and like you want, and you can't be watching them every second, so like sometimes those...
So is that the right exercise? No. Right? So if I have a group where I need them to be able to do it competently without me being a hawk around them,
Yeah.
pick a better exercise. We could try a split squat. A step up might be even an option where, again, if we want to turn them to the left, I can hold the dumbbell in the right hand the whole time, right? And I can turn them to the left that way, right? And they can do it with a better competency in that sense. So, again, we shouldn't be married to a specific pattern in some cases. It's what can we get them to train with and still improve what we're trying to see in our assessment and still get intensity.
Okay.
All right, so what upper body exercises will we pick? Denise, if we were going to do chops and stuff, we'd probably put it back up in R3, right? You could, if someone comes in and they're like, man, that chop just feels so good, and it helps me like move really good, move better. Maybe we sprinkle it in through the whole time because maybe they need to see it a bunch. So that it's not a no, but if it's not something you can load like a lot, right? No one's coming in doing like a 70-pound like, yeah, what's up?
What exercise are we doing?
We're going to pick 3. We'll pick, 4, you're right. We're going to pick 2 upper body and then 1 accessory.
So only one lower body.
We'll get there.
Oh, gotcha.
All right. I would most likely say if I want to turn it to the leg, I would probably give her stagger stance, 1-arm cable press, right? Because that's going to get me to push and turn me back into the left. And then if we just switch hands, we still got her back on the left, and we can keep pushing and pressing in that stance. All right. I don't know if I'd want to row her a ton yet. I mean, we could. Because if I'm compressed already on the back side of that left, I have to probably make sure that, again, I've got myself turning to the left so that I'm not just going to pull myself forward even further.
But if you were in a seated position, wouldn't I be expanding?
I would say here's an option that you could pick is maybe a pull down.
Yeah.
Right? Any type of pulling down might be a better option than a true just row. So we could do, again, like a half kneeling one-arm cable pull down, and we could always keep the left knee down, right? And that'll drive her down onto the left side. You could, again, some of these things you could continue to switch feet and still be okay with. It's not like it's the end of the world, but that might be a better option to start with. Or, again, there's nothing that says, like, is a push-up a good option here? 100% it is, right? We got an open back, right? We can even put a yoga block underneath her left hand to push her back on the left side, and we can do a push-up that way. And we can assist it. So we're not, again,
Thanks.
we're,
You do push-ups. Yeah. Just a push-up. Yes, I can, but not anymore.
all right, so one accessory exercise. We could do arms. We could pick another, maybe, this is maybe where we like that chop, right? Like I like where that chop comes in at the end and they can feel some stuff again. My thought would probably either be some type of maybe isometric hold on something for a lower half, right? This is where maybe we do a split squat hold here, or maybe you have them hold in that position and they could do maybe a row or something like that where you can kind of get a bunch of different stuff. But the other thing too is maybe we just do more arms, right? Because a lot of this other stuff up top was a lot of lower body heavy, and then we've got stuff at the very end, conditioning wise, maybe we throw you back on the spark and that's all lower body too. So it doesn't have to be this like perfectly balanced piece. In fact, it probably shouldn't based on what we saw. So if like, what do you want to do for an accessory piece? That's actually, here's the thing is, no, I think Beth has it better.
Yeah.
Do we want to do hamstring? 100% we do, right? That would be our money thing. So I would probably pick either, all right, so then we have this resilience piece.
But only on the left side?
We probably do both. We probably do both, but we might. That's why I did single leg, so that we could probably bias it a little bit in that sense. All right, so then we have resilience, which is what we call like the cardiovascular conditioning piece of it. All right, what will we put in there for you? We got him. She said, "I'm working on keeping my heart rate in a certain space." What does that look like?
What are you doing right now?
Spark and bike.
For like how long?
Like 8 minutes of intervals.
For 10 seconds?
So 10, 50, or 30, 30.
Here's the other thing too we got to keep in mind. Let's say we did 2 sets of all that stuff. That's going to take probably 15 to 20 minutes. We've got another 15 to 20 minutes already. That leaves us technically about 5. What do we want to do in that scenario? For her, based on her stuff, I would say either you can do 5 minutes to straight steady state and just keep it even, right? So I don't want her jumping up into like a high heart rate. I actually want her to maintain like an output and just watch her heart rate kind of climb and then level out for the 5 minutes, right? And what she should feel is like, all right, I worked at the end. I kind of started to feel a little bit more sweat, but I feel good leaving, right? And then we can even put in the recovery piece at the end. If she was like, I'm kind of good to go today, we might do 5 to 8 rounds of, she could do 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off. She could do a 5-second all out with a 50-second rest. Like there's nothing that says we can't do some of that stuff, but based on where she's at right now, I'd rather her finish out feeling pretty good, not like she's getting more gassed at the end. So I would most likely just put a 5-minute steady state. If we were using the Morpheus app,
If I didn't have the heart rate thing though,
yep.
what would you choose for someone with all of the other stuff?
So that's resilience. That's our metabolic space, our conditioning stuff. So if
If you weren't doing a piece of cardio, what would you do for resilience?
what else could we do? I mean, this is where
Talked about
you could use.
little circuit.
Yeah, you could do a little again. So like, let's say she's like, I still want to do some arms, right? There's nothing that says we couldn't throw in a little bit of a circuit where she's doing 10 reps of one thing, resting 30 seconds, 10 reps of another thing, resting 30 seconds, 10 reps of another thing, resting 30 seconds, and just kind of moving her through that. And doesn't matter. I mean, it's more towards, again, still our resistance, but it might keep her heart rate up a little higher because she's continuously moving, right? I would still argue that for most of our people, giving them something like that is going to leave them feeling better and easier for us to progress.
What is the blue zone?
The blue zone is for the Morpheus app is like, it's 75% of your max heart rate or below, all right? So like you shouldn't be like, right? You should feel like you're ramping up to a point that you could sustain for a while, and then we'd shut it off. All right, and then recovery, what would we do?
So he said not to focus so much
Huh?
on,
Yeah.
so he said not to focus so much on where you're pushing the air to, and just more on nervous system.
Yep.
So today, after my workout, I just did both feet down, little tiny tuck, just to kind of reinforce.
Mm-hmm.
And I just sat there, was breathing. That was it. Just not like overly thinking it, but just deeper breathing.
100%.
Because I was only thinking about it from.
So again, some of the stuff that makes it really easy for people is if you have something that gives them feedback. So again, if you looked at your heart rate monitor and you can watch your heart rate, just awesome, right? And you're bringing them back into a state of like recovery after getting ramped up. Those things, it's funny, the people that I have work on like the recovery stuff, so like, I don't know if you guys know Jim, who at the end of his workout sometimes we'll put him against the wall and we'll throw the sandbag on him, on his side, and he just like does the same thing, watches his heart rate come down, and it's his favorite part of like the whole day, right? And again, he's a wide ISA, has a hard time breathing, it compresses him a little bit side to side, and he can just kind of chill out and like everything just settles. So that could be one of the more important pieces for somebody, depending on who they are. And if you need to cut out one of the other areas a little bit, go for it, right? You get to choose where you think you need to put more emphasis. If somebody, like if we had an athlete, I probably don't really need them doing this if they're already in practice and playing games. I can probably put more stuff in the reactive part of it. Or if I have someone that is like, man, I really want to get stronger, we probably can put more stuff in the resistance category and throw out some of the other stuff, right? But
That's where I get confused a little between the R5 and R6 is because we do everything in like a circuit style, so like, or superset.
Mm-hmm.
So you got like 2 or 3 exercises repeated with very little rest. So you kind of are in that resilience, but it's also resistance. So that's where I was getting kind of hung up.
If it hits the buckets for both and the
Yeah.
person's progressing because maybe they're deconditioned, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
And I think the other thing too that you guys made a great point of is like adding in a timed rest period could make the world of a difference, especially for our small group stuff. Right? For our small group stuff, that is all of a sudden going to put them on their own coaching level to kind of stick with, like move through their exercises faster. So that's where we can say, like, all right, for her goblet squat, I want you with a 60-second rest in between sets. We're going to pair the one-arm cable staggered stance with maybe the single leg hamstring curl, and then our push-ups are on their own at the end with a 45-second to 60-second rest in between. Right? So you can start to flesh out how long they should be taking to do this stuff and give them more guidelines to do it. I think for the semi-private part, that is like, it could be a game changer for all of our stuff where people then have a much better idea of like, hey, you should be moving through these things. Like watch the timer, stay engaged, keep going. For our own clients, we are typically kind of doing that already, but it might help us program differently if we see that they can't recover quick enough or maybe they're like ready to go earlier, we start adjusting the programming accordingly.
Yeah, I have somebody that rushes through, like he never wants to take a break in between, so I really need to focus on
Yeah.
the rest.
You too? Oh, yeah. I finished my R6 today and just walked out the door.
Any quick questions or thoughts?
My other thing is, she wants, her main goal was to work on her heart rate. Is
Mm-hmm.
that enough time in that?
So, probably not, depending on what we want to try to
So
accomplish.
this is if I was 45 minutes.
If you were 45 minutes. So if she has longer, maybe we would take something else out and plug in a little bit more of that.
Or would you, if she had longer, you would make that like 10 minutes?
Yeah. This is where we would find a starting.
Longer,
Yeah.
or would it be?
no, we could find a different start. Again, we would find a different starting place for her. So let's put it this way, I have a woman that just started with us who's super deconditioned, right? And the first thing we did on the Spark, she did like 200 meters, like maybe 150 watts, and was like, whew, that's really hard. At the end of the session, after we went through a bunch of stuff, she did 500 meters. It's like, yeah, I feel much better. So it's like, all right, that first initial piece isn't an accurate representation of what she's capable of. We may move the earlier stuff just towards the end after she's done like all of her exercises. It puts her in a better position to handle the Spark. So you can figure stuff out as you see it happen, and then you make your adjustments. It doesn't have to be set in stone. Go for it.
So are you, or like, is this our new template?
Yes.
That we're gonna use?
We're going to start moving towards something like this in terms of our programming templates, yes.
Okay, and then a long time ago, you said you were gonna work on making a book of like exercises so we can all use the same
Correct.
terminology?
Correct.